Sometimes the answer is to try harder, but actually, a lot of the times, the answer is to try smarter. Here are my 10 top tips that made a huge difference to my outdoor bouldering. Applying these tactics often meant the difference between going home empty-handed and smashing my projects. If you are a seasoned outdoor boulderer, some of these tips might be super obvious, but these little tactics are often underused, and I found them all really helpful. The number one and probably the most important tip is this one. If you are projecting, don't keep trying the problem from the beginning if you haven't worked out all of the moves yet. For example, if you can do the start but you haven't worked out a sequence in the middle, focus on the middle section in isolation before you start linking it from the beginning. You get tired unnecessarily if you keep doing the sections you can already know how to do and could be failing to unlock the sequence because you don't have enough energy to actually try the moves you find hard. Obviously, this changes once you have done all the sections and you want to link it all together. Sometimes it is not possible to try higher sections because you can't reach or they're difficult to climb into. In this case, you can get a power spot from someone. This is where they help you into the move. If the boulder is high and you can't do this, you can always stack the pads and ask the spotters to move them straight away so you don't hurt yourself if you fell. There is always the ladder trick, although I feel like maybe this might be a bit excessive for 7A. Go and look at the top out if you can. If you're going for a flash go or you can't try the moves at the top, walk to the top of the boulders to see the holds better. This is especially true for heinous mantle top outs where a small divot in the rock can mean the difference of sending a climb or falling on the last move. Sometimes one pair of shoes just can't do it all. This might seem super excessive, but I have used these tactics on several of my climbs. My favorite pair of shoes are Scarpa Drago LV. They fit like a sock and have an excellent heel. They're really good for smearing, heel hooking, and generally moves where I want to have a really good feeling of what I'm doing. They're also soft, which I like, but this can also make it hard on limestone, as your toes really hurt trying to stand on a small edge. I used La Sportiva Kataki for limestone, as the edge is much better, but the heel, like with most shoes, doesn't fit me super well. I think I just have a really weird heel. So on some climbs, I used a different shoe on each foot to match the climbing. For example, here on Beretta, I needed very good right heel hook, but also needed to be able to step on a small hold in a roof with my left foot, which was much easier with the Katakis. I used these tactics on several of my climbs. I now also started to use La Sportiva Solutions, which are somewhere in the middle. Excellent edge and much better heel, although not great for smearing and generally more uncomfortable than Dragos. My primary shoes are therefore still the Dragos, but now I tend to really try and match my shoes to the terrain. Another really useful tip is using video analysis. So body awareness in climbing is something that usually takes quite a long time to acquire. Some people find it easier to feel what their body is doing whilst they're climbing, whereas I need to see myself often on camera to see exactly what my body is doing. Video analysis is therefore really crucial for me. I record myself a lot climbing, and when I'm struggling to do a move, I will often, in between goes, keep checking my camera and compare successful goes with the ones where I didn't do the move. What was different? Where were my hips? Which way was I facing? These subtle differences meant that a move goes from me occasionally being able to do it to being a very high chance. This was the case with the climb here, where I realized that I needed to push the hip into the rock to control the swing. So many of my outdoor projects were the same, when I almost did the whole project, several sessions, but always fluffed a move until I realized what the correct body position was. Another benefit of filming is that if you have a project and there are weeks or even months between goes, you can refresh your memory on your beta and not waste energy and precious skin relearning the moves. brushing the holds is absolutely crucial. I often see climbers trying the same problem and moves for ages and they don't brush the holds. Especially on gritstone, this makes a huge difference for friction. If holds are caked in chalk, you will very easily slip off. Watch good experienced outdoor climbers and they will all brush holds in between goes.
Another top tip, if you don't have an extendable brush, you can just strap your brush to a piece of wood or use a tape. Works well?
Go gently on soft rock like sandstone and grit and only use natural brushes. For limestone, a stiff synthetic brush is fine. Brushing holds is also really good because it forces you to rest between goes, which brings me to the next tip. Especially if the moves are on your limit, taking enough rest is paramount, as you need lots of energy to work out the sections or complete the whole problem. I always think about it as max strength protocol. If I am on my limit, having at least 3 minutes works really well for me. If I am projecting the whole problem, I will have anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes rest, depending on how hard or techy the moves are. Any more and I usually start to get cold, especially on grit. If you find it hard to rest, after you fall off, ask yourself why you have fallen off and what you're going to do differently next time. You can visualize the moves and brush and inspect the holds. This process will easily give you enough time to recover and your mind stays engaged for what you are doing. Keep the boulder pad clean and free of mud and bring a rag or a towel. If you climb on gritstone, you'll know that one of the challenges are small footholds. If you have any speck of dirt on your shoes, you're so much likely to slip off those small smears. If you climb with dirt on your shoes, you're also polishing the holds. Keeping your shoes squeaky clean is therefore really important. Having a small rag or a towel to wipe your feet before you get on the climb works really well. I also use Crocs in between my climbs instead of walking around in my climbing shoes. I'm definitely not winning any fashion contests, but it's a good solution. It all starts with keeping your bouldering pad clean. Try and avoid bringing dirt onto it by walking on it with muddy shoes. Dead pointing to a hold is something that I really struggle with. Accuracy on big moves are hard, especially if you're going somewhere out of sight, like reaching over the roof. Tick marks work, but be sparing with them and brush them off afterwards. In some places, tick marks are not allowed. If that is the case, you can get someone to literally point to the hold. On this climb, I struggled to do the move because I kept getting it in the wrong place, so my friend David has literally pointed to it. I did it next go. If you're projecting hard grades on your limit, conditions will become absolutely paramount. Gritstone, for example, is absolutely awful when it's warm. The slopers and tiny smears feel desperate. That is up until the temperature and humidity drops, when it starts to feel like Velcro. That is not to say that you can't climb when it's warm and humid, but if you really want to climb on friction-depending rock, or that is what is available where you live, going early or very late when it's cool and windy, choosing climbs with bigger holds, north-facing or moorland gritstone crags will be much better option. Be tactical about your project. Leave the smeary techie climbs for the winter when it will be super enjoyable, and find projects that are in condition during the warmer months. Some crags need prolonged warm weather to dry out, so those are a really good option. But then again, if you're strong, you don't need good conditions, so maybe the answer is to become an absolute beast, in which case, conditions what?
There's no bad conditions. There's only weakness.
If your skin can't handle too much outdoor climbing because maybe you have a really sweaty skin, then watching beta video is great, as you can reduce the amount of goes on your project, which can mean more success for you. The problem with watching beta videos for every climb though is that if you're not in the typical size bracket, the beta might not be that useful. I'm 161 centimeters tall with a negative ape index, so I often have to come up with different ways of doing the sequence than what the majority of climbers are doing. Relying heavily on videos also stops you from working things out for yourself, which equals learning the process of reading routes. One of the things which had the most impact on my bouldering grade was when I started to experiment with movement and work out sequence that works for me. And my last tip is to rest before your project. Before I go for my send go, I usually have a rest day. If I am close to sending and feel low on energy, I will sometimes have 2 rest days, in which case I feel like an absolute demon and I'm roaring with energy. I train hard, but I also rest hard and always time it for my projects. There is nothing worse than flogging yourself on something that means so much to you and feel exhausted and like you can't actually execute the moves. Every single one of these tips was tried and tested on my projects and often was the key component in completing the problem. I hope that some of these tips will help you climb your 7A projects. Let me know if you found any of these tips useful.